Hi, welcome back to the study. We're still in Mark chapter 2, and if you're joining us for the first time, I encourage you to go back and watch the other videos and kind of get caught up to speed. The Gospel of Mark is a foundational gospel to the entire New Testament. Matthew and Luke build their gospels on his same storyline. We call that the three synoptic gospels, Mark, Matthew, and Luke. And then John wraps the theology and spirituality around those synoptics and gives us a very definite picture of the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. And so understanding Mark is very important. We're going to pick up in Mark chapter 2, verse 14. It says, "And he passed by, and he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting in the tax booth. And he said to him, 'Follow me.' And he, Levi, got up and followed him." This is, first of all, a very unique thing because, as we come to find out, Levi is actually Matthew, the author of the Gospel of Matthew. And Jesus, coming by in his journeys after he had already called some of the apostles that we read about in our previous chapter in Mark 1, stopped by the tax booth, not a place that a good Jew would stop by. In fact, the Jews that worked in a tax booth were considered the scum of the earth because they worked for the Roman Empire and they were probably not loyal to Judaism or to the nationality of Israel. And so just to stop by the tax booth was to insinuate that you might be willing to pay your taxes, and second of all, that you would even begin to associate with someone who worked for the Roman Empire, a traitor of Israel, this tax collector named Levi, who we know as Matthew. Interesting enough, Jesus doesn't mind any of the cultural stigmas about the situation at all. And he walks up to Levi and says, the two-word sermon that we talked about in Mark chapter 1, "Follow me." And it says he got up and followed him. Doesn't say he said, "Well, can I finish the workday? Give me a few minutes to wrap everything up." He stood up and he followed him. And in that act, he was fired from a very good paying job, by the way. He just got up and left. He didn't cash the drawer out. He didn't balance the books. He didn't say, well, let me lock everything up. He got up and left, and he lost his job. And they probably were looking for him for a while. That's very unique when we see that from the big picture. First of all, Jesus is willing to go near a tax booth. He's willing to associate with this traitor named Levi, and then to call him to be a disciple. It's like, no, we want better people than that, don't we, Jesus? But no, Jesus was very diverse in who he associated with and who he even called into the apostleship. This is very, very unique. And you have to see it from the cultural advantage to get the big picture of it. Goes on to say, and it happened that he was reclining at the table in his house, and this is in Matthew's house, and many tax collectors, there's a bunch of bad people there, and sinners. And when we look at this word sinners in its contextual setting in the Greek and the language of which it was written, Jesus was sitting with some pretty bad people. We tend to take people by occupations, even in our culture, and kind of, yeah, they're one of those. They're that kind of person. They do that for a living. And we mean it facetiously, and just like they would have back then. We may lump them into various categories now: politicians, lawyers, car salesmen, whatever. And I'm not belittling any of those because they're all good Christian people that work in all of those careers. But we tend to group people by their careers and kind of put them over there. They're one of them. They did the same thing. Jesus and the sinners. And then the word sinners here is anything from someone who refuses to go to the temple and make an atonement every year. That's, even though they may live, shall we say, a moral life, they don't pay homage to the temple in Jerusalem. They don't go there and they don't do the proper sacrifices. All the way to the other end of the spectrum, the same word can also be translated for the street scum, the thugs, and the prostitutes. And no doubt there were some of these people sitting around because these people were the outcasts of Judea, of Galilee and all of the surrounding territories of Israel. These Jewish people that Jesus sat down to eat with, these were the outcasts. These were the people that the good Jews, the proper religious social elite of the Pharisees and the scribes and the Sadducees, did not associate with whatsoever. And Jesus was making a statement. He's sitting there eating in the house with many tax collectors and sinners. And his disciples were with him, which put them kind of in the same ball of wax with Jesus. For there were many of them, and they were following him. And when the scribes of the Pharisees saw that he was eating with the sinners and the tax collectors, the emphasis is on these two groups of outcasts, they said to his disciples, they didn't go to Jesus, they went to his disciples. Why don't you talk to the key element here? But they went to his disciples and said, why is he, Jesus, eating and drinking with tax collectors and sinners? And hearing this, Jesus took the helm. He stepped in and he says to them, it is not those who are healthy who need a physician, but those who are sick. I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Now, here's the irony of the whole thing. He came for everyone, and he is kind of being sarcastic and facetious back to them, and kind of, yeah, well, you're okay, but I came for these. When in fact, Jesus, I can just tell by the attitude by which he's conveying here in this language, that he's saying, oh yeah, you're okay, aren't you? No, we're all sinners. We're all tax collectors. We're all pagan. We all serve other gods. And Jesus came to redeem us. He says he came to heal the sick. He didn't come to those who don't need a physician, which is virtually nobody. He came for all of us because he is the great physician, especially when it comes to healing us. Remember that one story where the paralytic was let down in through the roof and Jesus forgave him of his sins first. And this is the premise that he is working on. He goes to those who need him the most. And really we all do if we're honest. And really we all have to come clean and quit looking at other people and saying, oh, they're one of them. They're a ... And we have to realize we are a one of those too. And Jesus came for us. That's the rejoicing that we can have when we read this text to realize we are the tax collectors. We are the sinners. No matter how good of life we've lived, Jesus came to heal us.